Khan here for Seconds Out with Frank Smith in Manchester, of all places. Frank, very good to see you in person, not over Zoom as it is sometimes, but great to see you nonetheless. Frank, heading into Jordan Gill versus Zelfa Barrett, a lot on the line for both fighters, which means obviously it's a critical fight for both of them to win. But who do you feel has more pressure on the shoulders heading into tomorrow?
I think they're equal. You know, look, one thing I'll say is, looking back 5-6 years ago when Zelfa Barrett took that loss in Peterborough, you know, that was a time where probably a lot of people said, where does he go from here? And then you see the path he's gone on from there. Look, they've both suffered defeat now, so it takes that element away. You know, Zelfa Barrett had that great fight against Rakhimov, took it on short notice, and was winning that fight arguably in there, and then got stopped. But I think both of them have got a lot of pressure on themselves. But the truth is, if both of them go in there and perform, win, lose or draw, it doesn't matter. There'll be big fights for them. The winner will obviously hopefully go on to a world title challenge towards the end of the year. But the loser, as I say, people want to see real fights. And if you take real fights, if you're involved in proper fights and you take challenges, you'll always have fights again back. So that's what I think we need to see more of in the sport.
You talk me through some of the undercard. What are the highlights you feel that people need to tune in for heading into the main event?
Yeah, look, Ellie Scotney in there looking to become unified champion. You saw the fire between the two of those. You know, that staring contest could have gone on for about a day until tomorrow, I think. Ellie didn't blink for about 3 minutes. It was quite impressive. We'd like to play that with her. But huge opportunity for her. She obviously won a world title. It's been her dream to become unified. She want to become undisputed after this, I'm sure, as well. But it's a tough fight for her. Rhiannon Dixon looks to become a world champion and set up big fights down the road with the likes of Caroline Dubois, potentially. Michael Gomez Jr., Kane Baker's going to be a war, and a load of young talent as well out on the card. So exciting. It's going to be an exciting night in Manchester tomorrow.
So any of the fighters on the card, more so at the top of the chain, would they potentially feature in the much mooted September Matchroom versus Queensbury fight card that's being milled about right now? Can you say to any of the fights that might be in play?
Nothing yet. Look, the focus is very much June 1st, and we've got a press conference on Monday to announce that 5v5 card. And, I'm sure we'll be working through what's next. There's big fights to be made. It's good to see the two of us working together. There's obviously, we announced Ellis Sorrow's going to challenge or fight for the vacant belt against Chev Clark, the vacant British title, which is great to see. And as long as we can all deliver great fights together, that's going to be key for the growth and development of the sport moving forward. But September, I'm sure there'll be some big stuff, but nothing yet.
Sometimes boxing can be unfortunate, as you know, with the Japanese tournament that was mooted as well too. At 5v5 with the fights in play, someone might get an injury, someone might be forced to pull out. Are there backup options in play or different fights on the line if something were to happen?
If anything was to happen, we'd work together to try and replace and work through and put on the best possible fight. But hopefully everything that we got lined up goes ahead June 1st. We're only 6 weeks away now, and we'll announce on Monday and go from there.
Joe Parker is someone who's looking for a fight. He's called out Anti-Joshua for one. Likelihood of Joe Parker and Anti-Joshua going in again?
Look, interesting fight. There's so many big heavyweight fights out there to be made. I think who would have put Joe Parker in this position, 3 or 4 years back? He's done tremendous to build back with the wins against Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang. And there's massive opportunities for him. Most of all, I like his call-out videos. So I think if he could just do 20 of those for the top 20, that could, that can focus some time on that. He's very good at it. Maybe a little creative genius when he retires.
There were some whispers around, I think it's within the industry, saying that Fury Usyk, the first one happens, and potentially, if the loser is willing to step aside, that Joshua might step into the picture there. Any truth in that at all, Frank? Has that ever been discussed or bandied about in conversation?
I think the reality is that heavyweight boxing, a lot can change in days in heavyweight boxing. And if the opportunity ever presented itself, it would be huge. And it would be a fight we want to see. So I don't think, the focus is AJ's been busy. He's had 4 fights in 11 months. He'll be back out around September time. He wants the biggest fights possible. If an opportunity ever comes up, I'm sure everyone would be very excited by it. But everyone's focused on their current fights. May 18th is ahead of us. We just got to look forward to that. Finally, an undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Been a long, long time coming. And then we'll go from there.
Congratulations. I've got to offer you for the closing on the signing of John Ennis. I remember speaking to you in Vegas, and you said it was sort of cooled off maybe a little bit and wasn't likely. So what changed in that time period, and was it a difficult deal to pull off?
I just try and play things down so no one knows what's going on. I'm unlike Eddie. Eddie gives a lot away, but until things happen, it's easier not to talk about them too much. I wasn't too. It was a deal where US guys, Eddie, Sean, Kevin, all put together, working with Jerron, Boots, and the team to get there. There's been we've had conversations for a long, long time when he's been in and out of contract. Coming out of contracts and free agent. But we're glad we got it over the line because he's a superstar and he now deserves a real promotional partner that's going to push him to the level he should be at, because his current promotional level isn't aligned with his skill set and his ability and talent. So, we're going to take him to the next level. And it's exciting because we've, over the last 10, 15 years or 40 years as a business, we work with some of the best talent in the sport. And he really is one of those who's going to become a pound for pound star. So to be involved in his career, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good journey.
Ben, I believe, put out a poster, I think, before the announcement was made. It seems unlikely that fight would be made, but any possibility that it would be?
Look, I think now we represent both fighters. We've got to do what's best for both fighters' individual careers. It's definitely a fight that's possible. Jerron's got his mandatory that he's got to deal with. That's probably going to be in the summer, hopefully in Philadelphia, which we're working on now. But that's definitely a fight. But like I say, we've got to do what's best for both fighters. Conor Benn would fight anyone tomorrow. That's just his character. He's always been that way. And look, Jerron Ennis is a brilliant talent. He's a great fighter. But let's see what happens.
Even on the theme of signings, I was quite surprised to hear that Eddie Hearn saying that Matchroom weren't interested in signing Anthony Yarde with him, his current promotional status maybe up in there, and belief, at least from yesterday, that he was maybe available to have those conversations. Frank Warren has said, look, we believe he's still under contract, and that seems to be, like I said, up in the air at the moment. But if he was a free agent, is there that interest there? Eddie seemed to say that he didn't want to jeopardise the relationship with Queensberry, which maybe if you rewind back a year ago, that wouldn't be a factor now.
Yeah, look, I think we're in a good place where the relationship's good. Look, I think there's different fighters. I think Anthony Yarde, and I've mentioned this before around like Anthony Yarde, Daniel Dubois, fighters like that. And this isn't an exhaustive list, by the way, but fighters that I think you're looking at, from our perspective at other promoters, I think Frank Warren and the team, George Queensberry, have done a tremendous job for. And I think we have fighters like that. Top Rank will have fighters, PBC, where you can look at and go, do you know what? You've given them everything, not given them everything because he's performed, but you've gone above and beyond and you've really delivered for that fighter. And I think Anthony Yarde's one of those fighters. And I think sometimes that then changes the perception of, like, when you've done so, because we've been in that position with fighters where they say, I'm out of contract. They're not out of contract, but fighters will say some things. They have bad advisors around them. They have people who don't understand the business and will say things which aren't correct. That's the sport we're in. I'm sure there's going to be fighters over the years who we all split amicably with and we say, like, good luck, and they go and get opportunities elsewhere. That's the sport, great. But I think fighters like Anthony Yarde, but he's still got a contract. Frank Warren's come out and said he's still got a contract. And, I think the relationship's in a very good place. And I think there's fights we could do together with Anthony Yarde as well down the road, with Queensberry. But yeah, look, I think we can understand, because we've been in that opposite position where fighters are coming out saying things which just aren't correct because the teams are at, but again, not our position. And I don't think it stops longer term. They might sign a fighter of ours that we've gone, good luck, thanks for everything. It might happen. It might be the other way around as well.
Ask you, Frank, in a general sense, just about contracts. When a fighter's contract is running down a little bit, is it a bit like football where you sort of know how long they've signed for, and when it comes to those last 18 months and there aren't negotiations going on, or at least the fighter doesn't seem interested, you get the sense that maybe something's going on in the background, or the sense that maybe they're looking to explore options. Is that like monitored, and do you kind of have a calendar as to when for each fighter you look to start those negotiations and have an eye on maybe them looking to have an eye elsewhere?
Yeah, look, we're continuously looking at our relationship with fighters, our deals with fighters, and that's why you see a lot of fighters we work with have been with us for a long, long time, because we're always looking to adjust things, deliver the best possible way for them and build something long term together. Look, what happens a lot in boxing is, you're there to build them up, you're there to deliver them fights maybe that other people wouldn't do for them, and then a big one comes along and someone might offer a little bit more money, and the mentality then is I'll go there, and sort of forget the work that's been done and the investment as well. It's very easy for me to come in and go, thanks for those 30 fights you've done with them and put them in that position. I'm going to overpay them for this one, then you're not going to match it. Like for a one-off. And sometimes, look, boxing's a tough sport and you have to maximise your earnings, but at the same time, you have to be, if someone's worked hard, and goes along the way, not just promoters, trainers as well. You got trainers who are on 10% of a fighter making $4,000 at the start of their career, and people then go, "Why are you paying them so much there?" It's because they were with you for 52 weeks of the year, making $5,000 out of you back 10 years ago. So it's a tough sport. You have to do what's right for you, and you have to do the best for you because it could. It's one of the most brutal, hardest sports out there. But at the same time, I do think, we've been in that position where you do everything for a fight. So like personally, where you go, wait a minute. It's quite disheartening, but it is what it is, and I suppose you just have to get over it. That's life, and it will always be that way. But yeah, we're always looking at our contracts and trying to work with the fighters to ensure that we keep them or work with them for the long term.
That's a contractual position. I want to talk about the position that Canelo Alvarez is in. He's at the top of the tree. And he said recently to Fight Hub TV, I believe it is, that look, when it comes to the Benavidez fight, I don't want there to be an absence of a weight hydration clause after the fight. He says, look, I deserve that because of what I've done in the sport. I deserve to call those shots. But that means, for the fans' point of view, first of all, they'll say that damages maybe his legacy because he's not making it a fair, quote unquote, fight. And also that means that maybe we don't get the fight too. Do you feel that Canelo's right in that position to call those shots, that fight, if he wanted it to happen, has to happen with a weight hydration clause after?
Yeah, look, he's put himself in a position. He's the king of the castle, and he will set out what he wants. That's the way it works. It's mad, this sport, because everyone's got an opinion and people saying he's ducking. Look at his career. Look at what he's done from the age of 20 or younger, but from 22 years old fighting Floyd Mayweather. You can't question this man's career. He's done so much for the sport. He's a superstar, will continue to be. And look, I'm sure if that fight ever happens, that's the reality of the sport. It'll be on fighters' terms that make sense. Otherwise it won't happen. Because the reality is Benavidez needs Canelo. Canelo doesn't need Benavidez to cement his legacy in the sport.
Frank, good conversation. Thanks for checking us out.
Cheers, mate.
Good man.